All right, we're going to knock out problems number 15 and 16 from the Geometry Chapter 3 self-test. So we got 15 on the screen here that asks us which pairs of lines are parallel in the diagram below, and we're going to justify our answer. To answer this question, we're going to need to fill in these other values of these angles here. So I'm going to start with this upper left-hand corner, and if I know that this angle is 100 degrees, then I know that the angle across from it, the vertical angle, will also be 100 degrees. So if this is 100, I know this is 100 because of vertical angles. And then if this is 100, I can find these two because this forms a linear pair with these other two angles. So if this is 100, then this other one must be 80. And this other one over here must also be 80. And that would make sense too because these two angles, these 80s, are vertical angles right here. So 80, 80, 100, 100. Then we come over to the remaining sides here, the remaining angles, and we can run with the same ideas here. We have one angle, so we can find the other angle. So if I know that this angle right here is 80 degrees, then I know that this angle over here is 80 degrees because of vertical angles. And then I can fill in the other ones accordingly. This is going to be 100 because of a linear pair here, or a linear pair here, so that would be 100 degrees. And then similarly here, because of vertical angles, 100 degrees again. Going down below, we have 100 degrees, so just kind of filling these things in based on vertical angles and linear pairs. That would be 80. This one would be 80 also. So now we have enough information to talk about or conclude whether or not lines are parallel. And I can say that lines C and D are parallel. So this line right here and this line right here are parallel because of these angles here. These corresponding angles, or these angles here, these four, correspond to these four, and they're all equal. And if corresponding angles, 100 to 100, 80 to 80, 100 to 100, 80 to 80, if all of those are equal, then the lines, the parallel lines, or the lines would be parallel. And we can say the same thing for lines A and B. We can say that lines A and B are parallel because, once again, corresponding angles are equal. 100 to 100, 80 to 80, 80 to 80, 100 to 100. So the two lines, the pairs of two lines that look parallel are indeed parallel because of the fact that all of their corresponding angles are equal. Number 16, we're given a figure, and we know that A is parallel to B. So we know that this line here is parallel to this line here. And we also know that line B is perpendicular to line C. So line B is perpendicular to line C, so that makes us aware that angle 1 has got to be 90 degrees since B and C are perpendicular. We know that the measure of angle 1, this angle right here, is 3x plus 57. And the measure of angle 2 is 2x plus 2y. And we want to find this value of y. The first thing we're going to do here is find x, because if we're looking for y here, we can't find y unless we know what x is. So we're going to find x. So we have this 3x plus 57. And I'm setting 3x plus 57 equal to 90, and the reason I'm doing that is because angle 1 is 3x plus 57, as stated right here. And also angle 1 is 90 degrees, and we know that because line B is perpendicular to line C, meaning that this is 90 degrees. So angle 1 is two things. It's 90 degrees because of this, and it's 3x plus 57 because of this. So we have this equation, and now we can solve for x. So we solve for x, we subtract 57 on both sides, and then divide by 3 and get x is 11. But we're not asked to find x, we're asked to find y. But now that we know what x is, we can then find y. So we're going to take this x of 11 and plug it in right here and find y. And I'm going to say that 2x plus 2y equals 90. Well, where does this 90 come from? Well, we know that angle 2 is also 90 degrees. And the reason that angle 2 is 90 degrees is because these two lines, A and B, are parallel. So all of their corresponding angles must be equal. And we know that angle 1 is 90 degrees because we are told that. Therefore, this angle right here is also 90 degrees. Therefore, this angle here is 90 degrees because A and B are parallel lines. So angle 2 is 90 degrees. That's probably the biggest jump to make here. The hardest conclusion to come to is that this angle 2 is indeed 90 degrees, and they're 90 degrees because A and B are parallel. So that's where this equation comes from. 2x plus 2y is 90 degrees. Angle 2 is 90 degrees. But now we know the value of x. The value of x is 11, so we can plug in that 11 for x and we can solve for y, which is exactly what we're asked to do right here. So 2 times 11 plus 2y equals 90, therefore 22 plus 2y equals 90. Subtract 22 on both sides, you get 2y equals 68, and therefore y is equal to 34. So the value of y in this case is 34.